Hello, everybody, and welcome to Decoding the WSL, the podcast dedicated to the stats and facts in the WSL. This is your Game Week 18 preview show. I am your host, Sam Biccarino, and on the show with me today, spotting a very nice shirt is Tom Maher. Is that a Mexico shirt?
It is, yeah. Yeah, it is from a few years ago, the women's team shirt. So nice little subtle hints of pink on the top and green. I think they're meant to be leaves, maybe. I'm not sure, but yeah, personal favorite.
It looks a bit like spots from through the screen, and if you're not watching YouTube, that probably won't make any sense.
It might be like leopard print. Sorry, I just came back from Mexico, right. And actually things of the jungle, so it's fine.
I was thinking we'd make quite a good World Cup group with all the shirts we're wearing. And I'm just considering you England right now.
I just thought I'd be the referee
in this group.
I'm actually representing the referees. This is the Stephanie Frappard fan club over here. So
yeah, Tom's got a lovely Mexico shirt. I've got it's not an official football shirt. It was something that someone bought me when they were emigrating to Australia, and for some reason bought loads of our friends' shirts. So I kept this. I got this when I was about 16. It still fits. It was huge when I got it. Alongside myself and Tom, you may have heard making the World Cup group alongside Mexico and Australia is Poland with Izzy Duddy.
Hello, yes. I don't know if I suppose if are we talking men or women's football, because we all know Poland women have the greatest striker of all time. But
yeah, women's football, I think it'd be a good group.
I think then, I'm on. That would be great. If I got to see the Tillies and Poland play each other, that would be banging. I'm after I don't have an Australia women's shirt, but I am after one, so.
What's wrong with Mexico, Izzy? You're just going to...
I'm just ignoring you.
Been to Mexico.
I have been to Mexico, but I know nothing, sadly, about the Mexican women's...
Did you get a Mexico shirt?
Yeah, I did get a Mexico shirt, but I got it off some guy on the street. It's like half broken already. I love it.
Mexico, really exciting. Keep an eye out.
All right.
Mexico,
well,
really,
if Tom
really
Maher
exciting.
says it, when Tom Maher says someone's up and coming, I switch on.
Well, we've got I'm in my Australia shirt, as I said. Tom's got his Mexico. Izzy is obviously a Poland fan, and then Ellen over at Stockley Park. How are we doing?
Great, thanks. And actually, Poland are hosting the Women's Under-20 World Cup.
They are
in this year now. Oh my gosh, it's this year. So
I know. I'm really excited.
So they'll make a World Cup this year.
Yeah, I know. I really want to get over actually for it. I really want to get over for it. I think it's gonna be really exciting. Word on the ground is that Poland now, as a culture, understands that women play football and they can do it. So that's really exciting. It's a big step forward.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, let's get to the women playing football. We obviously have 6 games coming up in the WSL this weekend, which, it feels like quite a while since we've had that, because we've obviously had some where we've had more or less or midweek games, etc. But no, these are all Saturday and Sunday. We're going to start with the 4 games at the same time on Saturday at 12 o'clock. Let's start with Manchester United against Everton, because although these two teams aren't necessarily fighting for the same position in the table, they are the two teams with the joint longest winning run in the WSL at the moment, 4 games each. They have 1 on the trot. But Everton have never beaten Man United in any competition, which is something I didn't realise until looking at this. Obviously, Man United haven't been around for that long, and when they have, they've pretty quickly got to sort of the top of the standings. But Tom, obviously, Everton have still got Courtney Brosnan in goal, so I'm assuming Man United aren't going to score.
Well, Sam, you don't need to ask. You don't need to come to me and ask me about that. No, I think it's going to be an interesting one. It's always fun when the two on-form teams come up against each other. And I think Everton, obviously, it was really nice to see Yuka Mimiki score, especially because she would have been disappointed to miss out on the Asia Cup squad, and it was an excellent finish against Spurs on the weekend as well. I feel like we might have a little bit of a, Beth Mead revenge tour 2.0 with Yuka Mimiki now. But I think it's going to be a really interesting game. It's important one for United. I suppose we don't have all the information that probably the listener has right now, because United are going to be playing West Ham in midweek. So
yeah, I
traveling away.
should say as well, we're recording this before the midweek games. When I say Man United are on a winning run of 4 games, that is not including the West Ham game. It might be 5, it might be none. Yeah,
I just think, it's how are Man United going to respond to losing 10-0 against West Ham last night? It's really joking. But it is a big question about how they're going to respond to losing the Subway League Cup final. And Everton, the way that they've conducted themselves this season, you'd expect them to respond well. But it's going to be interesting because Everton really, they're playing with a lot of confidence right now. So I think it's a tricky one, because I think United gave them a good hammering earlier this season at the Hill Dickinson Stadium, but I suppose Everton played quite well for about 60, 70 minutes, and then it all kind of unraveled for them. So they shown that they can do it against United. But I do think United will win this one. I think even with the 3 games in 7 days or 8 days, I'm going to go 1-0 to United. I think it's going to be quite tight.
Yeah, I think I did that for the midweek ones, that the game against West Ham, I won't say what I put because it will probably be wrong and I don't want to get slated for it. But I definitely remember putting that as quite a low scoring game because I think Man United, they can shut up shop when they want to. Ellen, how do you see this game going? Because obviously, both teams in really good form at the moment.
Yeah, both teams in really good form. As we mentioned, reflecting on last weekend's games, both teams missing key players due to the Asian Cup. I think it would be interesting, of course, seeing how in midweek, if United bounce back. Of course, it's back-to-back defeats now when you look in all competitions to them. Of course, both those defeats coming to Chelsea, but you saw just how hungry the team were, how disappointed they were at the end of the Subway League Cup final, the way that Mark Skinner was talking. I think there'll be goals in this one. I think we will. Yeah, I just think the way that Everton are playing, I really like what they're doing at the minute. Clearly a team on the rise, clearly a team that has responded well to the changes that they've had in the back room as well recently, and a team that I think has got a lot of potential going into next season. And of course, United need to show that they can stabilise things. They've got a big month coming up with the Champions League quarterfinals as well, and those games against Bayern Munich. So, yeah, I think there'll be goals in this one. I wouldn't be surprised if it's 2-1. I don't think there'll be much in it, but I think we will see goals.
2-1, I'll put you down for. I'm assuming that's a Man United 2-1.
Yeah.
And so you're going to have to lock in these answers. They are going to go public. And if you're a bit wishy-washy with it and just say 2-1, I may put you down for an Everton win. I'm going to go kind of similar to you two. I think it's going to be Man United. I think Man United are going to win the game, but I don't think it's going to be a comfortable ride. I think Everton will test them, but I think Man United will, like I said, I think when they really try to shut up shop, they can do it really well. And I think they've got enough on the counter to hit Everton hard. I think this is going to be a game where we might see Man United not being dominant in possession, actually Everton given the chance to come at them a bit, which isn't necessarily what they always want to do. But for that reason, I think Man United are going to win. I'm going to say 2-0 in this game, but I really could see 1, 2, or 3 goals for United. I could see a goal for Everton. So yeah, I'm not like, I think I'm pretty set Man United will win, but I'm not set on it being 2-0, but that's what I'm going to go for. Izzy, how about you?
I am not 100% sold on goals. I've gone for 1-0 as well as Tom. I think, United have just got a load of games on, obviously big games as well. Everton are doing well, and it feels like if I was Mark Skinner, I'd kind of try and shut up shop for this one. I think they'll sneak in a goal and put, enough to secure the win, but I'm not sure that they'll kind of really throw everything at it. So yeah, I'm going to say it's going to be a cagey one.
Cagey 1-0. Well, I'm glad I put it first in the running order, and we've all said that it's going to be a relatively dull game, but never mind. One that is rarely a dull game is when Manchester City face Spurs. This one is coming up. Man City hosting Spurs on Saturday at midday. City have won all 9 home games in the WSL this season, and Spurs have not found Man City a fun place to go. The last time they won away at Man City was September 2021, so quite a few years ago now. Ellen, I'm going to come to you on this one first because I know, well, you're probably best to talk about Man City out of all of us.
Yeah, I mean, City are in great scoring form until that goalless draw last weekend. First time that they've played out a goalless draw, I think, since 2020, maybe September around that time. I think it was Brighton they faced it in that game. It's been a long, long time. It's something we've been keeping an eye on this season as well, because there have been games that have started slowly for City. Usually they come through clutch with a late goal, and so often Bunny Shaw or Maher have been the deliverer of that. But I think the home form's, obviously, you mentioned the numbers there, Sam. It's been great for City this season. It's worth mentioning they've scored 20 more goals than Spurs in the league. And, you know, obviously we've been lumping quite a lot of praise on the job that's been done by Spurs. We saw last weekend that they can concede. I think the first goal that they did concede against Everton, I think maybe the defence, the goalkeeper could have done a little bit better. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see goals in this one as well. I think that we will see a goal away, at least one goal going either way as well. Obviously, the instability that we saw with Manchester City lacking that sort of edge against Aston Villa, missing Yui Hasegawa. She's as much as we talk about the way that she links up play, particularly going forward, and how crucial she is for them going that way, particularly this season where she's been given more space to roam. She's been given more encouragement just to play how she wants on the pitch. You know, she's so key to their defensive efforts as well. So I think, you know, with the change of goalkeeper as well, missing Yamashita for these games during the Asian Cup, I think Spurs, like they did in the reverse fixture, have a good chance of getting at least a goal. But I do think City, they're not a team that I'd want to play after, you know, the result that they had last weekend. The standards are really high. They can see the finish line, and they've lost it in the last few games of the season before, and that still feels very recent for the likes of Alex Greenwood, Lauren Hemp, you know, so many key players in this team who, you know, as much as there has been a fair chunk of recruitment, the core of the team knows what it feels like to lose from a position where they'd have confidence that they could take a league title. So, yeah, I think there will be, I don't want to say 2-1 again, but I feel like it could be 3-1, maybe 2-1, 3-1, that kind of. I'll be wishy-washy. I'm only going to be wishy-washy. I've got nothing else. I'm just going to go full wishy-washy. You're going to hate me, Sam. 3-1 or 2-1. You take your pick. I'll give you the option.
It's like I'm going to be doing the predictions twice now.
Yeah, is that all right? Can you just do mine for me?
I'll just make them all up. Yeah,
no, do it genuinely. Yeah, that's fine.
We'll go on to Izzy next, because I came to you last on the last one, so let's go to you next.
I feel like I'm copying now because I wanted to say 3-1, but I think it'll be.
Ellen now said 2-1.
Yeah.
So
you say whichever one you want, Izzy. I'll have the other one. Yeah, it's grand. Don't worry.
Thank you so much, Ellen. Yeah, I just think I wasn't too impressed with Tottenham's defence, and I think they're missing key players at the back. Similarly, City's defence, I think, was good last weekend, but they haven't obviously sort of found any goals from that match. And I think I can imagine Andre Jägerlötz is going to be drilling that into them all week. So I'm expecting them to come out and make a statement. But yeah, having said that, I don't ever underestimate Spurs this season. So I'm going to give them a goal, and it's 3-1.
I'm going to go a little bit against both of you because I think that I'm going to keep a Man City win, but I'm going to go for 2-0. Mainly because I just think defensively they looked quite good against Villa. I think they let in probably more shots and chances than they would like, but it still wasn't a silly amount. It wasn't that much. And Chiara Keating was very much on form. I'm hoping that she's going to carry on that form I say I'm hoping as if I've got her in my fantasy team or something. I don't, but I've got Knack at the back, so if she can get some more visionary points to me, that'd be fantastic. So I'm going to go for clean sheet for Man City in this one. I think they have a really good record against Spurs. They've won every game at home this season. And I'm going to kind of assume that this Villa game weekend just gone was a bit of a blip in the fact that they couldn't score in it. Because they are the most free scoring team in the league. So 2-0 is going to be what I'm going for. Tom, are you gonna give a fourth different scoreline?
Tom, you're on mute.
Yeah, so you're not going to give any scoreline if you're muted.
Sorry, Sophie.
I'm editing this one. I'm editing this one. So if you can make it as clean as possible, that'd be great.
Oh, well, make sure you edit that out, please. Yeah, it's funny going last because I feel like everyone kind of convinces you. You just feel like you're nodding along to everything that everyone's saying. But I think, I'm on a similar track to all three of you. I think that I'm a bit worried for Tottenham in this one, I think, because they gave up so many chances against Everton, really good chances as well. And I just feel like I think any team would struggle with losing your two centre-backs. Like, it's the heart of that defence completely gutted from that team at the Asia Cup. And I just feel like they're going to really struggle against players like Alex Greenwood, whose crossing has been unbelievably good. It always is. But, even on the weekend, she had 7 accurate crosses. The next highest player, accurate crosses wise in that game, had 2. So like that's the kind of level that you're looking at when you look at a player like Alex Greenwood, when you've got someone like Bunny Shaw in the box against 2 non-starting centre-backs. I think that City could have a lot of fun. Obviously, maybe it'll be a positive that Spurs lost against Everton, give them a bit of a kick to kind of get back into what they need to do to kind of manage this period without those key players off of the Asia Cup in Claire Hunt and Toka Koga. There was one stat that I wanted to mention about the Tottenham Everton game that I really loved. Olga Aitonen had 3 key passes. That was the most key passes of any player. And she only made 8 passes in the game. So very impressive, Olga Aitonen. So if she could do that again, that would be very helpful for Tottenham. But a slight sidetrack there. Apologies. But I am going to go a little bit more severe than everyone else. And I'm going to say 5-1 to Manchester City.
5-1. I think was the reverse fixture 5-1 as well.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Yeah. Jacob's going to love this when he listens to it. Before Jacob starts crying anymore, let's move on to the next game. London City Lionesses against Chelsea. I think there's a bit of a theme. I think this is going to come out in the next couple of games as well, with these 12 p.m. kickoffs on Saturday, that I don't think any of them are going to be that close in terms of, I think there's a definite favourite in each of the 4 games. This one, I think it's Chelsea. London City Lionesses have lost their last 4 home games and they haven't scored in the last 2 of them. The teams they've only met twice before. One of them was obviously the reverse fixture earlier this season. Chelsea won that 2-0 at home. And the other one was in the FA Cup back in 2021. Chelsea won that 5-0, but obviously London City Lionesses were quite a different team then. I still think that Chelsea are I think they're going to dominate this one. I think LCL are in a real bad patch of form, especially at home. I mean, they sold the Copperjacks out last weekend against Arsenal for the first time. And I know there's a little bit of Arsenal tend to get a really good away support, but especially in London. But I think you can see LCL making steps forward off the pitch, which is really good for them and good for them building the club, obviously. But I just think on the pitch, they're generally going well. They've obviously had a really steep rise. I think they're starting to get to this sort of plateau-y type bit at the moment, which is completely acceptable because I think they're still going to finish mid-table. And if they lose against Chelsea, last season's champions, and a team that are probably going to qualify for the Champions League this season, I don't think that's anything to be worried about. But they're just not in a good run at the moment. I don't think that's going to continue. So I'm going to go for a comfortable Chelsea win. Chelsea building on maybe getting this wrong, but hoping, or not hoping, but kind of assuming that during the week they get a win. in the game on Wednesday night. And this is going to carry on from that as well. So I'm going to go for a 3-0 Chelsea win on this one. Tom, let's come to you next.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. I mean, it's I think it's at Millwall Stadium, right? So that just an interesting dynamic, how that's going to work and if that's going to favour either side, where that could potentially favour Chelsea a little bit more. Yeah, I tend to agree, Sam. I think it's going to be difficult for London City this one. They've got one win in their last 7 in the league. And even though they're creating chances, they had 2 very good chances against Arsenal. Sani Franzi and Freya Godfrey both had really good chances in that game, but they weren't able to score. I think defence wasn't hugely convincing as well, but then I don't want to be too harsh on them because the conditions were awful and the wind was so bad. I think they played quite well in the reverse fixture at Stamford Bridge, and they're probably quite unlucky to come away with a 2-0 score. I think it was 2-0. Yeah. So it's hard to know. I feel like I think you've hit the nail on the head with the kind of plateauing point there, Sam, because I feel a little bit like they're at a point now where they need to kind of start, or if they want to take the next step, they need to start beating these big teams or like getting points, getting results against these big teams rather than the big teams just pushing their way past them. But I don't think that's going to start this weekend. I'd be confident that Chelsea will be able to win. I think it's going to be 2-0 Chelsea.
2-0 Chelsea, yeah. I think that's kind of on the same kind of path. Izzy, are you thinking the same sort of thing? Another Chelsea clean sheet? Or, I mean, last week you went for a few rogue choices and they worked out.
Yeah.
So 5-1 they'll see.
Yeah, exactly. Vibes only, and one day it will work out. No, I think there's going to be 3-0. Yeah, I'm not convinced at all at the moment about London City. I just don't feel like I know what they're kind of doing as a team. I think they're still kind of a bit of a team of individual talents, and they do have that attacking threat, but also Chelsea have Hannah Hampton, and you can't ignore that. And I do think this will favour Chelsea as it's at a bigger stadium. London City don't obviously have that level of experience that Chelsea do. So yeah, I think it's going to be a pretty comfortable Chelsea win.
I think the stadium thing's a bit of a weird one because there's a lot of players in that LCL side that are used to playing at big stadiums, but maybe not that recently. Like, it's not, assuming she plays, it's not going to be Nikita Paris's first time playing at a larger stadium than the Copper Jacks. Like, and there's plenty of other examples. She was just sort of the first one that came to mind, but it's something as a team they haven't done for a while. I am a little bit concerned about the fact that I'm coming to Ellen last and she's had the most amount of time to think up the wishy-washiest answer possible. So
no, I'm just going to go for perfect.
There may or may not be goals, might be what it is.
Maybe goals, maybe not. It sounds like the start of Baz Luhrmann's sunscreen. Yeah, so I'm gonna copy Tom. I'm going 2-0, and I agree with what Tom said. I think the reverse fixture of this was a game that I covered. Tom, I remember seeing you in the press room there, and they were unlucky because, well, I say they're unlucky. It was the real dying stages of the game. I think maybe just before the 90 minutes or just after the 90 minutes that Sam Kerr scored. The real mix-up in the back line. I think the fullback was Poppy Patterson at the time. Awful pass that just didn't it just didn't work out. I think the goalkeeper was a little bit further forward than she would have wanted to, and Sam Kerr did what Sam Kerr does and lobbed the keeper and the ball and ended up in the back of the net. And I think before that they were good value for a 1-0. And I think I remember saying in the commentary at the time and in the full-time wrap that, it showed at that point really clear signs of improvement for London City Lionesses, because it was earlier on in the season. I think it was around maybe October, early November time. I think probably October, I can't quite remember. And they had struggled a little bit. Of course, it was a tough start to the season for them. I think 2-0, sort of based off, agreeing with what everyone else has said. The one thing that I would add into it is kind of similar to what we've spoken about at Manchester United. Of course, Chelsea have such a big game coming up in the Champions League, those quarterfinal games against Arsenal, thankfully, obviously, I hope for the quality of that game and those games, they're not having to travel to a different country. It's a very short trip. The training will be at home where they're used to being, and they'll have that sort of consistency with where they'll be. But it is still such a huge game against the European champions. There's going to be so many eyes on that game. Seems to be a quarterfinals that's full of derbies, because we have El Clasico as well. That's the game that I'm covering during the quarterfinals. So I just think the intensity of the games that they've got coming up, Chelsea, also the fact that we speak about a depleted backline, of course, at Spurs with the players that are away. Chelsea have players who are absent in that backline, and now with the injury that Natalie Bjorn sustained, I think it was around 2 minutes of real playing time that she'd had since coming back onto the pitch. Had such a big smile on her face. It was so heartbreaking to see when she stepped onto the pitch in the League Cup final, and for it all to be taken away so soon. And that puts a huge amount of weight. And I'm saying this with the utmost respect and for the job that both Buchanan did from the very start of the League Cup final. Coming in, Naomi Gurma picked up a knock, so coming in to that centre half position, I thought she was exceptional. She could have had a goal herself. She had a bullet header that just went wide. But it's a lot to ask for someone who's been out for over 400 days with an ACL injury, and is paired with, I think, one of the best young talents in the WSL at the minute, and she's quickly becoming a fan favourite at Chelsea. Villa Berman is excellent, but that's a lot of playing time and a high intensity of games to go from a League Cup final, that real high game against Brighton. Brighton are looking to, of course, get their season back on track. High expectations for them after last season. They're missing a lot of players to the Asian Cup, and of course, we're recording prior to those midweek games. But I just think it's coming in very quick succession. We know how Chelsea tend to act, and Chelsea do it Chelsea ways. It's not always the most glamorous, so I'm not going to put my neck on the line and say we'll see lots of goals. But I do think Chelsea have that edge up front. The goal for Aggie Beever-Jones, I think, so crucial last weekend in the League Cup final, and getting her back underway. Her scoring has just fluctuated, started the season so strongly. And then I think that goal in the League Cup final was her first since December in the thrashing of Liverpool, where she went off injured in that game, of course. So I think they have the players there. It's just how tired are they going to be? It's a really intense period, and the biggest games are on the horizon. So I'm sure they'll say the focus, of course, will be London City Lionesses, but you've got to look the week ahead and that first leg against Arsenal.
I think you make a really good point about Khadija Buchanan as well in the middle of that. Actually, I wanted to pick up on, because I very much thought that when she came back from injury, especially for such a big injury, players often get eased back in. You look at, I know this may have been other factors to do with selection, but look at what's happened to Sam Kerr. She's not been
Lauren
starting
James
many
as
games
well.
at all. She's very much a bit part. Yeah, absolutely. Whereas Khadija Buchanan has not just come in and played a bit part. She's been almost forced in because of other injuries in her position, and has barely missed a beat. She's been absolutely fantastic, just as good, if not better, than she was before, which you very rarely see after a massive injury like that. So big credit to her. The final game, well, not the final game, but the other game at midday on Saturday, Arsenal against West Ham. Arsenal currently on the longest unbeaten run in the WSL at 10 games, and they haven't conceded in their last 4 WSL games. West Ham have not found Arsenal a good place to go. In fact, every time, in every competition that they've been to Arsenal, they have lost. So I think based on that, Izzy, is this going to be an Arsenal win?
20-0.
20-0.
No, I'm kidding.
I think that will fit in the graphic. I can move stuff around.
I'm going to go 4-0. Obviously, the reverse fixture was kind of crazy. But I think people like Olivia Smith at the moment is on such good form. She's got so much confidence. I think having that kind of Alessia Russo, Olivia Smith direct play is really going to work in Arsenal's favour in this. I'm still yet to be convinced by West Ham and sort of their defensive signings over the January transfer window. I kind of don't see that that's kind of improved since before the Christmas break. And I just think, you know, Arsenal at the Emirates, they've obviously been on such good form. I think is one we can expect some goals for. The only thing that's questioning in my mind is that Chelsea game and whether they'll want to rest some players. But yeah, for me, this feels like quite an easy one. And I'm going, so I hope that it's 4-0 because that will be fun.
Yeah, that'll be a good spectate. I'm kind of expecting a similar thing as well. I think it's important to note that West Ham have that midweek game at home to Man United as well, so that's going to be an extra test for them, extra obviously minutes in the legs and things like that. It's not like West Ham have the deepest squad, so a lot of those players that play on Wednesday are going to be playing on Saturday as well. And playing Man United and Arsenal back to back doesn't matter who you are, where you are in the table, what sort of team you are. You don't necessarily want those two kind of teams to come up against two teams that play in very different ways as well. So it's not like you can necessarily prep the same for each one. So I'm going for an Arsenal win as well. I'm probably going to go 3 rather than 4. I'm going to go 3-0. I do think there's going to be goals in it for Arsenal, but I think with other games coming up, there's no need for Arsenal to pump their goal difference up that much. I think René's going to be more inclined to give players a rest. You know, if they get a couple of goals up and Olivia Smith started, for example, and Alessia Russo has started, and those kind of players are probably more likely to get a rest with the calendar that's coming up. So, yeah, 3-0 is what I'm going to go for. Ellen, I'll come to you next.
Yeah, not to be a copycat once again, but 3-0 was the first that came to mind. I think that West Ham will have obviously. I do think that West Ham squad as a whole. I do agree to some extent with what Izzy's saying, but I do think that they have uplifted the squad. I think not just from what they've brought in, but also in terms of just the general energy around the squad just feels a lot better. I think we're seeing much improved performances on the pitch, and that's obviously, you know, helping their position. I know it's still precarious in the league, but it is helping where they are. The reverse picture of this was, like Izzy said, excellent. It was great fun. It was just chaos. Was it raining? I think it had we'd had some random September downpour, and it was just made everything super slippy. West Ham scored the first goal, you know, very early on. Daphne Van Dompsalo, the ball, I think, just slipped through our hands. I remember trying to commentating on that, and it was probably the most bizarre goal I've commentated on this season. But it was just a fun game, and it was one of those games where, you know, at the start of the season, Arsenal were in such good scoring form. You know, they burst out the blocks in the same way that they ended the season, just René Slager's ball, and it was a really fun watch, and you felt like, God, this is a great start for Arsenal, particularly I think the week before they played, that was the opening game against London City Lionesses, and it felt like everything was going in the right direction. I totally agree with, you know, kind of echo what I said about the Champions League games coming up. It's just such a big game, isn't it? You know, those quarterfinals we saw last season, the clash in the quarterfinals between Chelsea and Manchester City. You know, there's that extra bit on the line. I think when it is it's the London derby, but it's next level. So I think there will be one eye on that. I think something. I don't want to be a copycat, but I'm also going to stick by my guns and put my elbows out and say, yeah, I'm taking it. I'll agree with you, Sam, on a 3-0. I also we didn't mention it in the previous pod, but I love the fact that Kelly provided the assist for Smith, and seeing Kelly Smith on the score sheet, I was like, just love that. Particularly on, what is it, a week after the big what's the name for it? The big painting on the wall in Watford.
The mural, yeah.
Mural, yes, that's the right word. Sorry, it's getting late. My head's a little bit frazzled. Yeah, I did. I kind of loved that as a little, just seeing their names side by side. I thought that was quite fun. I just wanted to...
The little dance for Michelle Adjumang as
so
well.
Good.
That was proper class. Yeah.
So, sorry to be a copycat, Sam, but hopefully my answer is somewhat delivered. I don't know. I'm tired now.
It's acceptable. Don't worry. I've noticed the Kelly Smith thing before. I had... When I first started playing the Football Manager, obviously with women's football in it now, and I obviously just started off playing as Arsenal, and quite frequently it would be that they're just next to each other in the starting lineup.
Love it.
One's left wing, one's right wing, and it just is Kelly Smith, and I'm like, every time I saw it, it was one of those. I'm not going to make it like that on purpose necessarily, but every time it happened, it was just like,
nice.
Nice.
Basically. Tom, we haven't come to you yet. What are you going to go for?
Yeah, I mean, it won't surprise anyone to know that I'm on a similar path to all three of you. Arsenal won the last 6 games in all competitions and kept clean sheets in 5 of those 6. So I expect them to keep another one here. I think, we were talking about mentioning Chloe Kelly there. I thought you kind of were reminded how important she is or she can be to Arsenal. Just her and Smith, like it's been said already, but they really feel like they've got a connection. And there was a really nice stat about Chloe Kelly that she's now only Viv Miedema and Jodie Taylor have a better minutes per goal involvement ratio for Arsenal than Chloe Kelly. So, she obviously delivers the goods when required. And just on Olivia Smith as well, she, against London City Lionesses, she won 12 duels. And no other player won more than 5 in that game. And she also had the most tackles. So she's very hungry. And I just feel like, even though both teams are kind of playing games in a short distance, and Arsenal have one eye on the future, West Ham might have one eye on the past a little bit. Arsenal have a squad that's built to have an eye on the mid-week fixtures. They have to prepare for that at the start of the season, and West Ham don't. And I think that could be telling as well. And I think there's been some really good points made about the quality of opposition and the variety of opposition that West Ham are going to face in this 2-game period. So, I'm going to go with an Arsenal win, 2-0 to Arsenal.
2-0. Yeah, so between us, we're going for an aggregate 12-0 victory for Arsenal. So looking forward to seeing West Ham grind out that 1-0 victory. Let's move on to Sunday's game, starting with one at 12 o'clock. Brighton against Liverpool. Liverpool have the worst away record in the WSL this season. I know we've spoken before about Leicester and how bad their away record is, but Liverpool's is actually worse, just 1 point from their 8 games so far. But they do have a good record against Brighton. In their last 7 meetings, it's 5 wins for Liverpool and 2 draws. Brighton's last win was a 1-0. And to give you an idea of how long ago it was, May Letitia assisted Aileen Whelan for the goal in that game. So a few years ago, I think it's safe to say. I'm going to use the host prerogative on this one because I think this is the hardest one to call of the weekend, just because I don't really, not necessarily because they're so evenly matched, because I don't really know which way it's going to go. So I am going to go last on this one, just because I can. And I'll fire this let's go to Ellen first.
I'm going to go 1 apiece, please. 1-1. Obviously, what else would that mean? I just think Liverpool they're a different team to what we saw at the start of the season, whether that be obviously the recruitment, but I just think there is now optimism, there's belief in the team. And I think at the same time, Brighton playing midweek against Chelsea. I think there will be a little bit of an air of that. They're also missing key players. Kiko Seike tearing it up at the Asian Cup at the minute, and I think she scored. Right, this is racking my brain on the prep that I'd done. Kiko Seike, I believe, had scored in the 3 games prior to going away on international duty, and then I think she scored 3 or 4 while on international duty. The semi-final will actually take place before this game goes out. So she may score 3, she may score 4, who knows? Future listeners, probably. I think they're missing. Sorry. They're Brighton obviously missing key players. I think they are getting players back from injury at the right time, but it's yet to be seen the impact that will have. And at the same time, you've got a strong Liverpool squad who, while they do have absentees as well, I think they are better placed to replace those players, and their output numbers going forward aren't where they're losing players. So I think it'll be 1 apiece. I haven't gone for a draw yet. At least I don't think I have. So I'm going to be really boring, sit on the fence and go 1-1. Actually, one thing I do want to add on to that front is before the midweek clash, Brighton have only played 1 game in a month. because of the cancellation, or the postponement of the Arsenal game. And I was watching Wolfsburg play in the Champions League against Juventus earlier on this season, and you could just see, I think it was the most evident game I've seen where a team had not played in a month. And I do just worry a little bit. I think maybe that's more for the Chelsea game than it is for the game against Liverpool, because obviously they'll be at home, and also they'll have had the run out against Chelsea. They'll have, been able to, whatever, regardless of what the scoreline is against Chelsea, they'll have, all been out, played the 90 minutes and got the job done. But I think then I wouldn't be surprised if there is a little bit of rustiness, because they just haven't had the game time as of course the international break, but then the postponement as well. So yeah, just one game in the last month, I believe it's since the 8th of February, I believe. Just the FA Cup game is the only game they've played. So yeah, maybe a little bit of concern around that from a Brighton front, hence why I haven't put them for more goals.
It's hard. I always find it hard with Brighton, especially sort of this point of, or sort of since Christmas really, because they're very middle of the road, but they're very middle of the road on a lot of things. So it's not like they're doing particularly well against a certain type of team, particularly badly against a certain type of team. They're always just in every game, which is why I always find it's quite hard to pick. But yeah, so I can see why 1-1 sounds about right, because Liverpool, yeah, like you say, they've been pretty poor away from home, but they are in better form. Recently, more, I say more enjoying their football. Let's go for Izzy. How about you? How are you looking that this game's going to go?
Yeah, I think similar to basically everything Ellen just said, but I do think Liverpool probably a bit better equipped to navigate this game. Like, I think they're so much more cohesive, and they feel like they've got a bit of a plan now and a bit of variety, whereas Brighton obviously missing Kiko Saker, and also, like, I think at times when they've struggled as a team, kind of she's provided that moment of brilliance or whatever that's been able to see them through. So I don't know, are they going to struggle, especially after having played Chelsea midweek? It just feels like the kind of chips fall a bit more in Liverpool's favour. So I am going to go 2-1 to Liverpool.
2-1 to Liverpool. Tom, are you going to even it out?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I don't think I'm as convinced just yet by Liverpool with the Asia Cup situation, just on the fact that they don't have Fuka Nagano, and if Denise O'Sullivan is missing as well in that midfield, I think Brighton are a lot more equipped with Maisie Simons and to kind of look at dominating that midfield if Liverpool are missing those two players. I do think it's going to be a really fun game, this one, to be fair. I think we spoke about it on the preview pod. Kerry Holland is just probably one of the best players in the league right now on current form. She was just exceptional on the weekend, and Mia Enderby is probably not far off an England call-up. She keeps on playing the way she's playing. So, there's a lot to be excited about for Liverpool. But yeah, it's very difficult to predict Brighton right now because, like Ellen said, they haven't played in the league since the 8th of February. And when they played in the FA Cup and the last time they played in the league, they're both against West Ham. So, it's been so long since they've played a new team, basically. So I think it'd be interesting to see how it pans out. I think I'm going to go with a draw as well, but I think it's going to be quite fun. I'm going to go 2-2 draw.
I think this is going to be, after hearing what everyone said, I think this is going to be a game with goals in it. I think Tom's kind of swayed me a little bit with that bit at the end about if Liverpool are missing a few players. Obviously, we know Nagano's out and O'Sullivan potentially as well. And could that leave Brighton? Because they're missing Kiko Saker, but they've still got a good amount of quality in that squad. So I'm going to go Brighton win, just to even it out. I'm going to go 3-2. I'm going to go for an even bigger goal fest because I think this might be a game that has a lot of goals. I don't think that Brighton. I think Brighton will create a lot more than Liverpool do, but I think Liverpool will be a lot more clinical with what they do. I think their keeper is better than Brighton's. To be honest, Jennifer Falk is more likely to be keeping goals out, and I think Brighton will probably, well, assuming Liverpool do have those players missing, I think Brighton are going to dominate. That's where I'm going to go with that. I do feel like I'm putting my neck out on the line a little bit by listening to what everyone else said and then going something different, but never mind. Moving on to the last game of the weekend, Leicester against Villa, Midlands derby. And yeah, we've spoken about Leicester in the review pod as well. They've lost their last 5 WSL games now and haven't scored in their last 3. But on the other hand, Villa haven't won in their last 5 games and they haven't scored in their last 3 meetings with Leicester. 2 of those last 3 meetings were 0-0. And both of those were at Villa. The other one was at Leicester and was a 3-0 win for them back in February 2025. Although, yeah, like we said on the review pod, Leicester haven't actually scored this season more than 1 goal in a game. So if that 3-0 comes in again, it's going to be a big change. Tom, I'm going to come to you on this one first.
Yeah, it's another interesting one. I think it really can't be understated how impressive that result on the weekend was from Aston Villa. You know, the last home game that Villa played, they conceded 7 goals, and then you've got Man City, the team who's absolutely destroying the league and scoring at will against everyone coming. Like, for them to get a clean sheet is a minor miracle, really. So, you know, I hope that they're filled with confidence after that. I saw Natalia Arroyo interviewed after, and the smile on her face was just absolutely brilliant. So yeah, I think that hopefully they'll come into this one with a fair bit of confidence. And Leicester's home form is comparatively decent to their away, and they have pulled off a few surprises. I don't think many people expected them to beat London City before the winter break, and that kind of felt like it came out of nowhere a little bit. And I do feel for Rick Passmore as well, because they're suffering with a lot of injuries. You know, it doesn't feel like Naomi Mouchon's been fully fit. And I think if she is fully fit and gets to start every game, has a run of games, then that can be a huge boost for them. She could definitely go on a goal-scoring run, and that's what they desperately need right now. Obviously, as far as goals are concerned, Jutta Rantala is just not been available as well through injury, and Heather Payne's had another setback. Sari Keys, Celeste Boreal, and obviously Emily Van Egmond's off at the Asia Cup. So they really are struggling and I do think their squad is quite thin even with those players. Sorry. So it's going to be a tricky one. I think Kirsty Hansen is just a player who can get a goal out of nothing as well. And maybe Leipzig just showed a few signs of rust coming back into the side, with Olivia Clark also out, of course, now. So I think that Villa are going to win this one 2-1.
When I was sort of listening to you and I was thinking about it beforehand, and I was thinking that I don't have that much. I think Leicester's defensively are significantly better than they are going forward. I can't see them getting more than a goal still in this game. And to be honest, I'm going to go for a result that doesn't see Leicester scoring. But there was also in sort of in my mind as well of how well will Villa do? But Kirsty Hansen. And for that reason, I'm going to go for a 1-0 Villa win in this game. Izzy, how about you? Are you also backing Villa, or can you see something else?
I am backing Villa because I think defensively they're obviously, as they showed on the weekend, a lot stronger. But I think when I was watching the City game, someone that really struck me was Chastity Grant. And I think sometimes we forget about her. And I think it was her shot that hit the post.
It was.
Yeah, and I just think she's so good on that wing. And I think because of people like Kirsty Hansen, maybe sometimes she gets overlooked because she doesn't often she doesn't convert as much as Kirsty Hansen. But I just think she's so effective. And I think Leicester might struggle to handle that. And I just think that the timing of this fixture with the place with Aston Villa having had the result that they've had and Leicester having the form that they're on, I just think this one will be comfortable for Villa. So I'm going to say 2-0.
2-0, comfortable victory. So 3 from 3 for the Villains. Ellen, round us off.
Yeah,
how are you going to see this game going?
Yeah, I'm also going 2-0. I just think, exactly as Izzy said, I do worry a little bit for Leicester after Villa's performance at the weekend. I was nodding my head frantically in agreement with Chastity Grant. I think her and Kirsty Hansen, like you've already mentioned, if Leicester sit in that low block that we've seen them deploy through the first part, like the first half, first 2/3 of the season against teams who are above them in the league, which is obviously everyone now, but against the teams who you'd expect to be up there, then I think Villa have those sort of unpredictable players and I mean that in a really positive way. And I think Hansen has been that this season. She can create. Look at some of her goals; they're superb. Like the way she strikes the ball, and she's just been shining. And I think Chastity Grant, the way that she played against Manchester City, I think it showed more than enough sort of what she's capable of, obviously without finding that end product. I think I mentioned it in the last podcast. I think it's kind of like a positive melting pot in terms of what Villa are facing, in that Aston Villa, we saw how good they were last week at shutting down shop early, and that's something they've really struggled with this season. They've conceded the most goals along with London City Lionesses in the first 15 minutes of games, but against Manchester City they shone at just being able to shut up shop, like I said, and then build that confidence afterwards. And on the other hand, Leicester have only scored, I think, 1 first half goal this season. I'm pretty sure that number still remains in 8 goals in total. So for me, if Leicester don't go out early and try and force the matter, Villa are just going to grow in confidence, as we saw through that Manchester City game. And I just think it's really tough. Leicester, I think, they're struggling to establish that on-pitch leadership after the loss of Yanis Kaiman leaving the team. And I think that was somewhat of a shock to some during the January window. I think maybe to others, they'd have expected her to leave maybe a little bit earlier on, maybe in the summer window, maybe even before that. But, she was such a huge leader on the pitch and off it, and she really set the standard and the example. And I don't think we've seen someone come into the Leicester squad who has that same kind of presence around them yet in terms of driving the squad forward. So yeah, I just think it could be just the way that Villa performed at the weekend, proving that they can keep a clean sheet through the first 45 minutes and then go and push on. I think that it doesn't bode well for the scoring record that Leicester have, and just how poor that has been this season. I think really, I know, Sam, you've said it before, I think there is major problems with Leicester's goal scoring situation, and I think it goes quite deep. I remember, I don't think it has changed, but I may be fact checked or number checked on this, but I remember a couple of months ago when I was working on a Leicester game, no current player who plays in the WSL has more than 10 WSL goals for the club in all time. And I think that still stands. And so if it is more than 10, it won't be by much, considering how few they've scored this season. And I think it's not a new thing that Leicester aren't scoring. And I think that you mentioned Noémie Mouchon. Tom, I think she's great. You saw that goal against Arsenal. She's able to split through a wall and she's able to run, but she hasn't had the minutes because she hasn't been fit, and that then hurts your confidence as a forward-minded player. I think the talent is there. I just think it's so hard to hone that all in the January window, and obviously they've brought in the big names, they've brought in stars, they've brought in players who carry a little bit of aura around them, but it's how do you translate that into goals and on-field performances? And time's running out for Leicester because they face such a tough run in. Obviously after this game they face Brighton, Arsenal, Chelsea, Everton as their final 4. Of course, that Arsenal game is the game in hand, and it's so hard. I think that was also a game in hand around this time last year, and I think it was 4-1 the final score at the Emirates on that day. So it's really hard to see things going upwards in terms of the league position for Leicester. And also, kind of with that in mind, they need to go out in this game. They need to go out in the Brighton game, and that's when they're going to be opened up in the way that they were against Manchester City. There was, obviously, I think when we saw them play against Manchester City, we thought, okay, this is going to be a low block. They're going to make it hard, as they did in the reverse leg of that game at the King Power Stadium. But away at Manchester City, they played open football, and at times you thought, they might score here. They hit the bar, I think, a couple of times, hit the post, they rattled the woodwork, couldn't find the back of the net, and City did exactly what you'd expect from City and tore through the back line and netted with 6-0 that day. And my fear is if they have to go out and play a certain way because they need to find the points, but also they need to get that balance right. And I think they find themselves in such a precarious and challenging position at this point of the season. And they need to find something that, and in reality, this game and the next game are the games arguably where they're going to find it. And so they need to come out and play, but is that where they become the most exposed?
Yeah, I think I had a little look at the fixtures Leicester have still got for the rest of the season, and this is probably their most winnable game. And obviously not that many games this season have been I think they've got 2 wins all season, I want to say off the top of my head. So there's not been that many winnable games, and this is probably the best shout they've got. And 3 points on Sunday for Leicester is going to be a huge help for them. Whereas Villa, I think, are probably safe, regardless. But again, another 3 points for them will be put them, comfortably towards that mid-table rather than anywhere near the bottom. They are our predictions for the 6 games. Before we leave you, we will touch on Aerial Fantasy quickly, our sort of top picks for game week 18. For me, I've already got a triple Man City in my team. I've got Rebecca Clack at the back, Caroline and Bunny Shaw up top. I may end up taking one of those out because I do want to put some Arsenal players in. I don't have any at the moment, and I would like to get Alessia Russo in, but it probably would mean taking Bunny Shaw out. If I take Caroline out, I need to take another player out that's going to be, helping fund it. And I also have Anna Sandberg at the moment, who is injured, so I could do with taking her out as well. So I don't 100% know what I'm going to do, but I'm definitely going to be waiting until after Wednesday's games, because it's not Wednesday yet as we're recording. Obviously it is if you're listening to this on Thursday, so you'll know. But probably going to wait until Friday lunchtime and then try and make a decision about who's going to come in for me and for who. I think my captain is probably going to be either going to keep Bunny Shaw in as captain, or if I do end up taking her out and putting Alessia Russo in, Russo's going to be my captain. But that's where I'm thinking at the moment. Tom, how about you? Have you thought ahead?
Yeah, I have done a little bit thinking ahead. I want to get an Arsenal triple up in my team just because of the fixtures that they've got, and trying to find the most reliable players for that triple up is a bit of a tricky one. But I think, especially given one of my Arsenal players, Daphne van Domselaar, didn't play this weekend. I've decided to probably bring in Lette in order to fund bringing in and taking out Van Domselaar to bring in maybe lots of and Moy. I also really like Bernabe as well at Liverpool, and she's a little bit more expensive than the other Liverpool defenders, so that kind of can put you off. But she's a visionary, and she's not your standard visionary where they're obviously a budget player who's surprised and got some points because they don't stay visionaries very long. Whereas Bernabe, because of the price point she's at, she might actually stay a visionary for a bit longer than you might expect. So I'm a little bit tempted to bring her in. And I think this week was kind of the last of the summer wine as far as a good few of our favourite visionaries are concerned. Rebecca Canak's no longer a visionary. I don't think Beata Olsen's a visionary anymore. So a few Senior Gopset isn't a visionary anymore. So we had to enjoy them while we had them. But I think those are probably going to be the moves that I make, and I think in defence it'll probably be Bergstrom who's going to drop out of the side just because we're not really sure what's going on there at the moment.
Yeah, I think a lot of us had her in Bergstrom in the team this week. She obviously got no points for any of us because she wasn't involved at all, not even on the bench. So I've got her and Sandberg at the moment. So as much as I would love to get Alessia Russo in, I also have 2 defenders that may not play. So yeah, that's kind of why I'm having to wait until after the midweek games. Izzy, how about you as the highest scorer from last week? Oh, games dependent, but most likely.
Yeah, I'm in a similar boat where every visionary I've relied on is no longer a visionary because we've spread the gospel too far. So I'm not really sure. I might keep Knack in anyway, even though she's not a visionary, just because I think she's great. And she really, really looks like the person from Pitch Perfect that plays the German, and in the second one. And it just, every time I see her face, she just makes me so happy. So I just think I might keep her in for that. Sam Coffey, though, is a visionary, which is slightly rogue, but she did have a few shots in the last game, and she's only 7 million, which I feel like is all right.
What's the price point?
Yeah, it's not too bad for her. So I'm considering that, but that might make my life too complicated. I think I just need to bring in Olivia Smith, to be honest, because I just think
normally a good show.
Yeah, I just think this is the time. And I've got Miedemar and Shaw in my front line, so I might bunk off Miedemar. Sorry, that feels like I don't know, blasphemy or something. Yeah. The only other thing I would say is that Oriane Jean-Francois is currently a visionary, and that I'm interested in that because I think she's doing well at Villa, and given the fixture they have, could be something interesting to think upon.
Is she listed as a defender on the game? Because I know she just played in at the back of the
She is a midfielder, I think.
So she'll get some points for a clean sheet, but not as much as...
Yeah, she's a mid. She's 6 million.
So it's quite cheap.
Yeah. So I think,
that might be a good fixture.
Exactly. So that's another one I'm thinking about, but I don't know if I'm going to risk it.
Yeah. I think, to be honest, this is probably the worst of the sort of aerial fantasy sections we've done all season, because we've still got games to go before the weekend. But hopefully, listener, viewer, you can take along some of those tips and tricks. And as a lot of our viewership does continue to go ahead and beat us by listening to our picks. So we're glad to be of assistance for that. But yeah, that's all we've got time for. And I think in more ways than one, because it's Monday at the moment, but it's almost Tuesday. But if you enjoyed today's episode, please do make sure to like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at Decoding the WSL, and subscribe to the YouTube channel, which is Decoding the WSL as well, and you can watch us as well as just listening. But yeah, thank you, Izzy. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Ellen, for returning as well. We'll have to have you back on soon. And obviously, thank you, viewer. We'll see you at the next one.